Thanks, everybody. I'm the last presentation of the day. I'm delighted to be here, and thanks very much. So just to say, most of my career has been in higher education, career services, and but I know you had a lot of talks on today, so I wanted to focus on something different. We have a stand here at the Atlantic Technological University. So if anybody wants to come up afterwards, we can definitely have a discussion with you. I was involved in a project called My Career Path, which you can look at our website. But this is basically where we developed pathways for people at different stages in their career. And we developed a 4-stage program where people can do some psychometric assessments to help them move forward in their career at whatever point. So just wanted to mention that. And obviously, we have some information on that down at the stand. But I'm just going to focus today on, as I say, the skills and the changing skills that are happening in the workplace. And most of you are probably aware of this. We have seen pre-COVID jobs were lost primarily because of the adoption of automation and AI technologies. Jobs were gained where we have an aging population and we had the evolvement of the green economy. So, post COVID, we have seen now the changes in the workplace. It's very much remote working. There's a shift to e commerce and other virtual transactions. There's a faster adoption of AI and automation in certain areas. So basically, skills and the skills that are required now for employers are really changing very, very quickly. By 2030, they predict that we're going to have very much a gig economy where people are going to have different types of 3 or 4 different jobs going at the same time. Most people will be working from home and they'll be switching jobs more frequently. A recent McKinsey report shows that nearly 40% of jobs that are currently existing at the moment will be obsolete by 2030. So, again, that whole agenda around upskilling and reskilling has never been as important. That's just a kind of image on looking at all the changes that has happened over the last number of years. You have the Internet of Things, mobile, virtual reality, augmented reality, blockchain, artificial intelligence, automation, and robotics. So huge, huge changes. This is just an image of a workplace of the future. And you can see there, it's all robots. There's no humans. But obviously, humans are in the background, but it's a very different workplace. Um, the workplace of the future is going to be very much around navigating the skills gaps, challenges. So, skills based hiring. So, a lot of the reports that are coming out are that employers are focusing now on skills. It's really interesting. I've seen a lot of CVs today, and people are really highly qualified. But when I was asking, like, what skills do you have? People had to think a lot before they could answer that question. Employers are interested in your skills, your technical skills, and your human skills. So it's really important to be able to talk to those. Um, and again, I have a lot of the research from the World Economic Forum. They're talking about the importance of digital skills, so IT digital skills, but also the human skills. Training and development, so continuous learning and lifelong learning. Before, when I started, you did your primary degree, that was it. You tended not to go back and do any further education. Now you have to be constantly upskilling and reskilling. Otherwise, you don't remain relevant in the workplace and you won't get those various promotional opportunities that come your way. Um, so these are the kind of key areas we find within our university, our courses that are really popular and where most of our graduates are getting very good jobs. Data science, analytics, software development, cybersecurity, engineering, definitely construction engineering, financial services, healthcare, and life sciences. So this is where there's huge growth in terms of the workplace and the opportunities there. Employers now are putting a lot of energy and resources into upskilling and reskilling their employees because they know of all the changes that are happening. And if they want to keep their companies relevant into the future, they need to make sure that their workforce are also have the necessary skills to develop and grow with the company. So they identify the skills gaps, they align their training with the business goals, they improve the recruitment strategies to make sure they're recruiting people not just for their skills, but for the ability to learn, to constantly learn and develop. That's kind of what they're focusing now for the moment. Um, they are putting a lot of money and resources into boosting employee engagement and retention so that they can optimize the resource allocation. When I mentioned about human skills, the focus now is very much, as I say, on human skills. So even though we have all of this technology, they need humans into the mix. So what they're looking for now is X-shaped. So we can see why I have I-shaped. Originally, when they were recruiting, they took people for their depth of knowledge in a particular area. That has changed now to this X shape. X shape involves humans collaborating with machines, with robots, and with software. X shape, continuous and non predictable learning. So, like that, employers need people that can always change to new developments that are happening. So, you have the propensity to learn and keep learning. So, they need a fluid intelligence, the ability to solve novel problems independent of past experience. So, that whole skills debate is really interesting. The most sought after skills is communication skills, and we hear about this all the time, emotional and social intelligence. And it's really interesting. A lot of the research is showing that people who are very successful have really high emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is where people can read the room. They're able to understand people's emotions. So when they're in a team environment, they're able to predict how people would react. And they can read a person and read their emotions, which is really important. But also they can control their own emotions. So again, remaining calm, when things are very stressful, all of those things are really important. Collaboration and relationship building. So, again, to be able to collaborate and build relationships is really powerful, and this is something employers look for. Culturally and environmentally aware, problem solving and judgment, imagination, creativity, adaptability, resilience. We hear about this all the time, managing stress and curiosity. Curiosity is that ability to always ask questions, always want to learn new things. Um, this is kind of taken from the World Economic Forum. Those 12 skills they have identified as being really important and why recruiters look for these when they're in interviews. So it's really important to have really good evidence of where you've been adaptable or flexible. Show them how you have critical thinking or problem solving skills. Give them examples of where you worked well as part of a team and where you collaborated with others. So it's not just good enough to say you have these skills, it's really good to give examples. We did a survey there recently with employers in Galway, and 91% of the employers that we surveyed agreed that their organisation would benefit from their employees identifying and further developing their transversal skills. So those are those soft skills or those generic skills. So even though like our jobs have become very technologically based, they still need those personal skills. This is just some of the skills for our region. Again, a lot of the regional skills reports over the last number of years have highlighted these particular sectors. So, entrepreneurship and starting your own business is still really prominent in our area. Cultural creative sector, again, is becoming more prominent. Renewable energy, climate change, and sustainability. Life sciences, med tech, and medical devices really strong. Agri food and agri tech and tourism. Marine and the blue economy. Advanced manufacturing and engineering. ICT and ICT services. Digital transformation and green transformation. So these again have been identified by all of these reports as being areas for development in our region. I did want to mention we have a stand here with the Atlantic Technological University, and most of you are probably familiar with Springboard courses. But that is something, when we said about upskilling and reskilling, these particular courses are free. They're really kind of geared towards skills development that are needed now for our economy. So definitely have a look at these courses. They're absolutely fantastic, and they're available in every university in the country. And as I say, they're free. The other kind of programs that I would like to highlight is things called micro credentials. It's kind of a relatively new area, micro credentials, but it's where you can go in and study a very specific area, and you can just do a short module micro credential. So it can be 3 credits right up to 30 credits. So if you're in a particular job and I have identified that they want you to have a skill in a certain area for advancement, you can do a micro credential. It's a very short piece of learning, but for example, you could do it in a software development coding language. So if they needed you to have Java, or they needed you to have a certain IT skill, you can do that micro credential, and it's really, really useful in terms of your CV and in terms of your development. I did want to mention that my background is around employability and what are the important factors for employability. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that and show you a framework that might be useful in terms of yourself when you think about your future employability. And it is about sustainable employability and remaining employable throughout your life, because different things happen in your life. And no more than the previous speaker, you will take time out and you will have gaps. And it's about how do I, get back in there and remain employable throughout my life. So, sustainable employability is about having the skills, the knowledge, and understanding and personal attributes to be able to secure and be satisfied and successful in your chosen occupation and future life. So, that's a definition of employability when we ask, what does it mean? So, this is a framework in terms of employability, and this has been researched by a lot of academics, and it's called the Career Edge Employability Framework. And what it has proven and identified is that these 5 key elements must be present in your life at all stages in order to have really strong employability, and that they are career development learning. So that's what we do as career coaches. We help you with CVs. We help you present yourself at interview. We help you analyze a job description so that you can answer those questions really effectively. Experience work in life, that's every work experience that you've had, that you can think about the transversal skills that you've had in every job. So to be able to talk about skills. So if you have taken a career break and you have been rearing your 3 children, understand the skills that you developed while doing that and be able to articulate those in a CV or with an employer. The other thing is your degree subject knowledge. So all of you have done certain qualifications. But when people presented their CVs there today, they weren't able to talk about the skills that they developed as part of that learning. And it's really important to be able to analyze, what did I actually learn in that degree or whatever you did, but talk about the skills. The next thing then is your attributes. So there are things like your generic skills, they're your communication, they're your business acumen, they're your collaboration skills, they're those soft skills that I mentioned. And then finally, it's the emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is about being able to read people in a room, being able to get on with people and collaborate with people. So they're the 5 things. When they're present, when you have experience or exposure, they say that they develop your self confidence and your self esteem. And employability and self confidence are really strong. There's a strong correlation to both. So remember that self confidence thing. So again, sometimes when we take a career break, sometimes maybe if we've been made redundant, sometimes if we don't feel very confident, that confidence is really important when you're re engaging again with this whole area of employability. So that's just a framework to remember. And when you break this down further, you'll see these are the skills. So remember, I said skills, the soft skills that you should have, and, again, be able to talk to some of those when you're presenting yourself to an employer. Subject knowledge. Just go back and look at those courses that you did and pull out what were the key skills, what were the key learnings, and be able to talk to those. The same with networks. So most of you, you're going to have your LinkedIn. don't forget about all of those networking or collaborations or those contacts. Those contacts are so important in terms of your employability. Then career planning is really crucial. And, there's lots of people here today helping you with that. And then finally, your cultural awareness. We work in a very diverse now organizations. So it's really important to be able to talk about your cultural awareness and then finally your emotional intelligence. So some of those kind of things might be useful. Okay, so I'm just gonna move on. We just have a little tool to help you rate your employability. But that's if you're on my career path, we use an AI tool and we give you a series of questions and it actually generates a report for you to give you insight and a scoring around your employability. But I'm not really going to talk to that now because you need to go on the platform. But I'm just going to quickly, briefly talk about CVs because obviously I've been looking at a lot of them today. And most of them are very good, actually. I saw really good CVs, but people weren't necessarily able to talk to them when they came up to the stand. So I'm just putting up, these are your key headings on your CV. Your CV, as you know, is 2 pages. It needs to be perfect. Definitely show it to a number of people. Obviously, we can put it into AI now and it'll come back with, obviously recommendations that you need to change it. A lot of employers don't like AI CVs. So make sure that you keep it to your own, kind of language, etc. So you have these are the key headings, your profile, and that's where you summarize your key strengths. And you also tell them what your career objective is. So that's about a 3-liner at the top of your page. Your work experience is really important. But what's most important about your work experience is that you've pulled out what were my key learnings in each of those jobs? What were my key achievements? And to be able to very succinctly say what they were. Somebody said to me there today, oh, well, if I did that, I probably have 20-page CV. No, you won't. If you do that and spend the time on it, it's like I wrote you 10 pages instead of giving you a paragraph. You have to spend the time to analyze that and put a synopsis around it. And you do the hard work for the person that's reading it. The next thing is your education. Don't forget about those research projects that you would have done. So, any part time kind of like projects as part of your course, do mention them on a CV because it shows that you've research skills. Publications, presentations. Don't forget about those presentations that you did. Sometimes we take those for granted, but it's really good to show that you have those skills. IT skills, again, are really important. Sometimes we just take for granted that everyone uses Excel or everyone's competent in Microsoft Word. Make sure that you have that listed on your document because, again, AI is analyzing for these specific buzzwords. You're going to have professional memberships. If you're not a member of any professional kind of body, go out and become one. Get a membership because, again, it's a criteria that they look when they're analyzing this. Interests and achievements, again, don't underestimate these. I've seen a lot of CVs today and it didn't have anything outside your work or your education. We all are humans. We all want to get on with each other. They like to see that you're involved in things outside, what I mean, your work, that, you are a well rounded person. And finally, your references. Normally, you would say references available on request and make sure, obviously, that you pick 2 people that like you and that you know is going to give you good reference. So that's just a little bit about CVs. And I cannot underestimate having a skills profile on that document. So, and you need to have IT skills listed and you need to give, a few ideas about what you've been doing with IT. So, other people have technical skills and then you're going to have your soft skills, what we call soft skills or generic skills. If you're saying that you're a team player, the first thing they're going to ask you is, give me an example of where you worked well as part of a team. So it's not just good putting it down as a word, back it up and give a good example. Okay, so you'll have, it could be health and safety, communication skills, working under pressure. There's some of the key ones that they like. The other thing I was going to mention is when you're in an interview, most interviews are competency based interviews, and that's where they look for evidence. So you've told me that you're a good team player. Now I'm going to ask you, give me an example of where you're a good team player. And you're sitting there in the hot seat and you're going, oh, like now? And they say, yeah, take your time. Give me a good example of where you showed that you problem solved. And then there's a nice little structure to give your example, and it's called the star answer. Have any of you ever heard of that before? The star answer. Good. So it's a really nice framework because we're nervous in interviews. Next thing we're going, oh my God, I can't think. So this gives us a little structure and it helps us give a really good example. So again, this is like an exam. We're going to be scored on my answer in the interview. So I need to make sure that I'm sounding really good and professional. So star is called the situation. So when you're given the story about when I was a really good team player, I'm going to give the situation because they've never heard this story before. So I need to tell them when it happened, where it happened, and who was involved. Then I need to give T was the task. What was the key challenge of that team? What was the key thing we had to do? Again, have it ready. The next thing then I have to talk about is the STA action. What was the action that I took? And this is where you get most of your points in the interview, is talking about what I actually did. So you're going to have your bullet points. Well, the first thing, I was involved in the team. We got together, we brainstormed what we were going to do. Each of us decided we were going to take responsibility for this. Then we went away and we generated an email. So that's where you talk about what you actually did. And the final thing then is the result. What happened in the end? Our team worked really well. We actually got a special award within the company because of blah, blah, blah. They usually like happy stories. So give them kind of good examples of where you worked as part of a team or whatever it might be. So that's the star answer. It's a really, really good method when you're in interviews and you don't rock up and try to do this in the interview. You prepare your examples and your stories before you go into the interview. And there's key competencies that they look for, but have your answers written out in that structure and it'll work really well for you. And my final slide then is around the first question that you're asked in interviews is tell me about yourself. And again, we're very nervous and it's a very broad question. You kind of start going, well, what do I say here? Like, do I give personal information? No. So tell me about yourself. This is a little framework to talk about it. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to answer this question. And what you're going to focus on here is your experience, your skills, your education, and your career objective. So they're your 4 subheadings. So you've got 3 minutes and you just focus in on those four key things. And you start off, usually you can have this prepared and have these bullet points ready before you go into the interview. And at least it keeps your confidence going when you're there. So thank you very much. I don't know if I'm on time or not on time, but hopefully that was useful. Thank you.